How's it going? Back again. This is going to be day 9 of the Marian consecration. It is the culmination of the consecration, although it is well past Fatima now. It is June 12th, so fortunately about a month out, a month past, but still worth following up, still worth digging into. And I ultimately want to close this out by describing the ultimate pinnacle scene in the Bible that demonstrates and exemplifies this Marian consecration. So, looking at John 19:25 to 35, and this is the context of this is we're at Calvary, we're on the cross, and it goes like this, quoting from the Bible. Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdala. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple there whom he loved, he said to his mother, Woman, behold your son. Then he said to the disciple, Behold your mother. And from that hour the disciple took her into his home. After this, aware that everything was now finished, in order that the scripture might be fulfilled, Jesus said, I thirst. There was a vessel filled with common wine, so they put a sponge soaked in wine on a sprig of hyssop and put it into his mouth. When Jesus had taken the wine, he said, It is finished. And bowing his head, he handed over his spirit. End quote. Now this is just ultimately the pinnacle, the peak of our salvation history, is Jesus has just died on the cross. And understanding this context, what is the last thing that he did before he died? Is that he gave these directions to Mary, and whom is next to Mary, which is the beloved disciple, is he says the words, Woman, behold your son. Then he said to the disciple, Behold your mother. And from that hour the disciple took her into his home. And so it is a complete giving of his mother. And because Jesus here, as we further previously addressed, woman is actually a elevation of a title that he's giving to Mary in order to draw her back to her universal mission, drawing her to Eve, drawing her to Revelation. It signifies her universal motherhood, not just her as a mother of Jesus, not just a mother of a son who's dying on the cross, but a mother of God. And so when we see this, we understand the importance that this aspect, this final thing that Jesus did in his life, how close to his heart it was. And so then we have to ask, who is the beloved disciple? Well, in this specific context, in this literary sense, the beloved disciple is John, the evangelist. And he's the one who's writing this gospel. And he's also the one who, in the Last Supper, is said to have his heart on the side of Christ. And John has a very intimate and arguably one of the closest relationships with Jesus. And this is most epitomized in Jesus entrusting his mother to John. He's saying, I'm gone now. You need to take care of my mother. And John fully embraces that. And he says, and it says here exactly that, and from that hour, the disciple took her into his home. And so I just know personally, thinking of how much, if I had to leave and my dad was no longer around and there was someone that needed to take care of my mom, there'd be a very, very, very short list of people that I would trust. I'm sure you would be the same way, that you're thinking, this is my mother. I need someone to take care of her. I need to make sure she's all right. There's a certain level of love and trust that you need to have in that person, and that you want to correctly give to, so that you can love your mom through that person. And so Jesus, in telling John this, is giving him a monumental task, but also a very loving and trusting task, because he's even giving it to him. But though it's further, and what all the church fathers and what is the interpretation of the church right now have said, is that the beloved disciple is also me, it's also you. And it is anyone, because of Christ's love for us and because of the title used as woman, it signifies a universal motherhood. And so then it also signifies that it's any of God's children. Any of God's children are the beloved disciple in here. And so is our invitation, just like Jesus gave to John here, specifically to him to take care of Mary while she was on this earth. It is an instruction, it is an invitation, almost even an order for us to take that upon us and welcome Mary into our homes. And one neat connection, it was a grace I had from a holy priest who had a devotion to the San Damiano cross, which is the cross that St. Francis of Assisi was given in his ministry. And it'll be in the thumbnail, and it shows that the cross has a little wider base where the vertical beam is, and it shows on the left and the right of Jesus is Mary and John. And the unique interpretation that this priest described to me is that it was not really John's merit that, and his pure willpower, that he was the one disciple that did not leave Jesus on the cross, but it was actually his reliance and his trust in Mary that had leading up to Calvary and leading up to him being entrusted with Mary by Jesus on the cross, that he had such a tender devotion, such a tender trust, such a tender reliance on her, that she gave him the grace. She even willed him and almost pushed him up with him to go to the cross with Jesus. And so John is able to do miraculous things, very courageous, maybe not miraculous, but courageous things, face possible death right in front of him. They could have crucified John right with Jesus. He was a disciple, but they didn't. But the only reason John was really there is because he already had such a foundational love and tender devotion and reliance on Mary. And when I see that San Damiano cross, I always think of how Mary is trying to usher me to the cross there too. And I invite you to think of that, where because it is so important that that Mary and John are at the cross, and this is the pinnacle of Jesus' life, the very last moments, what is most sacred in his life is he's giving his mother away. It's important for us to contemplate that and to ask for that grace that Mary will bring us to Calvary and give us the grace to endure suffering and give us the patience to do what God requires us. And so I invite you guys all to take this consecration, find a feast day that's leading up, and there's 3 C's that I need to leave you with. First is we have to consecrate ourselves. We give ourselves to Mary formally in prayer and using any of the different modes and methods that are online. This is one that I recently just did. It's through the Militia Immaculata. Would recommend it. And then secondly, we have to have the habit of consulting Mary. We have to call upon her in prayer. We have to call upon her name in our day. We have to seek her out in the little things and in the big things, and go to her as a mediatrix to God and to receive all the graces that we need to fulfill our duties in our daily life. They don't have to be extraordinary, but they have to be consistent, and calling upon her will make everything more efficacious. It will make everything sweeter. And lastly, we have to collaborate in her mission. Mary is the universal mother of the church. She's the universal mother of all humankind. And so she desires greatly, with the love of 1,000,000 mothers, to save every one of us. And so we must share this devotion, and we must share the love of Jesus Christ. And so I invite you guys to specifically to carry a rosary, first to pray the rosary, to carry a rosary around, and especially also to give the miraculous medal to loved ones and to friends, and even just keep a couple spare around that you may have the opportunity to evangelize and to give a sweet and short summary of why you have so much love and faith and trust in God, is because the Blessed Virgin Mary has guided you, protected you, and led you to know and love God. And so it is through Mary, St. Maximilian Kolbe says, that It's the easiest, surest, and quickest way to Jesus. And so by sharing her mission, by sharing her love, we can take part in that, and we can help save souls, which is ultimately our purpose here on this earth.